Welcome to Too Deep, Hokies Under the Influence. And it is Virginia Tech. This isn't some rinky-dink-ass program.
Come on, JC.
We're going to put this old guy in the grade. We'll go over some of the stats really there. 60%, 11.
It's an 11 game.
Welcome to Too Deep, Hokies Under the Influence, a Sons of Saturday podcast brought to you by Jack and Coke. Yes, Jack and Coke is back as our sponsor for this upcoming season. I think Mark was on the show in one of the first episodes where we had Jack and Coke as the sponsor last year, and he is back again. And that's right. We have the legendary voice of the ACC network, the former host of ACC PM, and so much more over the years. Mark Packer has joined us. Mark, thanks for being here.
Well, it's always a pleasure. I love talking about the Hokies and the ACC, and I've said it from day one in this goofy, crazy business. You know what? Nothing gets done until something gets sold. So congrats to Jack and Coke being on board. I've got a little brown water right here to celebrate. So all that is it is a perfect fit. Love everything about
it. It really does work well. I know that Mark's got some brown water there. We both got some beer. Sam, why don't you kick us off with a cheers?
I don't know if I can do a better cheers than that, to be honest with you. I was going to talk about Mark and his and happy retirement. And, congrats on what has been, I think, a astounding career in this business where it is really, really hard to carve out an astounding career. But I don't think I can top that, to be honest with you.
All right, let's do it then. Cheers to that.
Amen.
Nothing gets done until something gets sold. Is that what it was?
Yeah.
That's pretty good. Well, first and foremost, how is retirement treating you? It's been a couple months. How you feeling? What are you doing day to day?
I've been so busy. I've got so many things I've got to do. Again, after my mom and dad passed, we're still going through the estate process, which is just tedious and a lot of lawyers, a lot of headaches. So that has really taken up a lot of my time. I'd spent almost zero time worrying about college football, which is something this time of year we're all inundated and we can't wait for the season to get started. But I spent really very little time on college football. And again, ESPN literally just got their stuff out of my house a couple weeks ago. I'm still waiting for AT&T to come get their stuff. So, there's been a transition with all that kind of stuff. My wife and I went out to Northern California, to Carmel and Big Sur, which is a special place for both of us since we honeymooned out there 30 years ago. So we had a little road trip for about a week. And so, again, I got some projects up my sleeve. Again, I'm not going to stay quiet for long. But it's been a busy couple months, believe it or not.
Yeah, well, our condolences first and foremost as well too about your parents. It's always tough to lose a parent. I've been in those shoes, and it's tough at any age. But this offseason was kind of a mixed bag of stuff you might not want to pay attention to if you're into college sports, because we had the House case that came down, and we thought all this good stuff was going to happen in terms of enforcement. And then soon after that, we learned the clearinghouse is going to mean nothing. There's going to be no enforcement. There was college football playoff deliberations, which is something we want to ask you about. And the ACC, one good thing, I think, the ACC calmed some of their realignment chatter, correct? In my opinion, they might have bent over backwards a little bit for Florida State and Clemson.
Well, maybe we'll find out. But the one thing is for certain that there seems to be, like you mentioned, at least some stability. And I think you got that in the short term. And I use the term short term, meaning for the next 4 or 5 years. I think when we get to around 2030, when we get new realignment talk, new contract negotiations from a television perspective, what college sports even looks like 4 or 5 years from now, maybe I don't even recognize it based on kind of where we are now. But from an ACC perspective, while it was really kind of a dark cloud with Florida State and Clemson suing the league and vice versa, once that got settled, whether you thought it was good, bad, or indifferent, there is a sense of everybody can now take a deep breath and then get to work and try to go out and win and perform. So, sometimes you're going to get litigation like that. It becomes a lose-lose proposition. In some respects, depending on what school you are, what fan base you are, you may sit there and go, I hate how that worked out. But Clemson and Florida State got some clarity. Actually, the rest of the league got some clarity as far as expansion goes. If you happen to want to get out of the league, you know what it's going to cost. There's also the incentive to win based on payouts and all that kind of stuff. So, from an ACC perspective, I think the league is in a much better place today than they were a year ago based on what happened in the courtroom.
It is always better to not have the team suing the league. I would agree with that. We got 5-ish years of stability. It would seem something like that.
Yeah, I think that's a safe thing to say. And again, we could have this conversation tomorrow morning. There could be a new headline, and we retract everything we say tonight. But I think for the most part, everybody that has ties to the ACC in some shape, way, or form knows exactly where they are and what they need to do between now and 2030. And again, at 2030, all bets are off. I mean, there's no telling what this thing's going to look like.
Yeah, that's very true. Well, let's do something directly related to the college football season. The AP poll came out. And as college football fans, no matter how silly it may be, I love the college football AP poll. It is.
Do you?
I really do.
Fight you on this one.
You'll fight. Okay, that's fine. I want to get your reaction to the poll and maybe your just opinion on a preseason poll to begin with.
Well, first of all, it's irrelevant. I mean, and I'm just going to, again, it's not just, I'm not even going to give you an opinion. I'm just going to give you a bunch of facts. 22 of the last 23 years, all right, 22 of the last 23 years, there has been at least one team in the AP preseason top 10 that we cannot find on a map when the season ends in the top 25. 22 of the last 23. The only year somebody did that was Texas, who was ranked in the top 10, and they won the Alamo Bowl or the DogAteMyHomework.com Bowl, and they snuck in at 25. Otherwise, it'd be 23 consecutive years that we'll sit here and look at the top 10 and go, hey, so-and-so's overranked or overrated, they're underranked. None of it matters. None of it matters. Plus, we got 3 games in week 1 of top 10 matchups. Ohio State and Texas, Clemson and LSU, Miami and Notre Dame. And the whole thing's going to look completely different by week 2. So, and while we talk about the teams that are in the top 10, you do the flip side. 31 of the last 36 years, somebody who is unranked ends up in the top 10. Last year, we had 3 teams end up unranked to the top 10. Indiana, Boise State, Arizona State. So, if you're a Virginia Tech fan, you're a Clemson fan, you're a Miami, whatever, you'll look at that poll and go, man, we're getting screwed. How can they not have us in the top 25? It doesn't matter. Go out and win some games. Nobody knows how good anybody is at this point in time. And I almost laugh when I hear people lose their minds with the AP preseason top 25. It's totally a joke. Really is.
This is why we have you on, because you just brought some facts to the table right there with regard to finishing in the top 25, finishing out of the top 25.
Right.
Yeah. But go ahead, Sam.
Yeah, I'll tell you, Mark, you make some phenomenal points. However, I'm a simple college football fan. I just like seeing the logos with numbers next to them.
No, I mean, listen, there's always, if that's what makes you happy, awesome.
Yes,
but
sir.
In terms of, hey, is my team any good? We're being disrespected. We should be ranked higher. It's all garbage. It is hot air. It's wasted energy. Let's just take Virginia Tech, since we're talking about the Hokies on this podcast. There may be fans that go, hey, quite frankly, with what we've got coming back, we should have been on the cusp of the top 25. Here's how it works. Go beat South Carolina in week 1 and watch where you are in the AP poll. Seriously. True. I mean, it's literally that simple. So it doesn't matter. It has zero bearing on the college football playoff rankings, which quite frankly are the only rankings that matter. I did the mock draft 7-8 years ago, and I had the mindset that the AP poll really had an influence. It has zero influence on the committee. All this does is give us a team and a number, and you say, hey, it's a top 10 game, it's a top 25 game. But quite frankly, a month from now, that list that you see, those 25 teams, it'll be completely upside down in all likelihood.
As someone who has talked for a living, this is what it gives you. It gives you talking points. It gives you something to dive into and that kind of thing. Notable for our listeners, we got 3 ACC teams in there. Clemson's 4, Miami is 10, and SMU is 16.
And where's Georgia Tech? Where's Louisville? I mean, I can make a great.
It's a good question, Mark.
No disrespect. I think Georgia Tech, in my opinion, is going to be a top 20 team. I think their schedule lays out well. And granted, they got to go play Colorado and Coach Prime, and they get Clemson, I think, in week 3 or something like that in Atlanta. But look at their schedule. If you assume, again, that's a dangerous thing, but if you assume who you think is going to be good in the league, look at Georgia Tech's schedule. Look with what they've got coming back. They've got experience at quarterback. To me, a team like Georgia Tech and Louisville are two teams that if they're not ranked at some point in time in the top 20 this year, I will be shocked. And you can bookmark that one and make fun of me all you want when we get to November. But I think those are two teams just within the ACC that you could easily make the case to be a top 20 worthy team.
I agree. Yeah. And if you looked at who was in there, there's 10 SEC teams. And those two teams you mentioned were teams that I thought it would be valid to or warranted to put a Louisville and a Jeff Brom coach team ahead of, say, Tennessee, who just lost their quarterback and lead running back, or even an Ole Miss, Oklahoma, who Venables has really proven not a whole lot since he got there. Why wouldn't Jeff Brom or Haynes King-led team be ahead of those teams? I thought that was something, Sam.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think those are the two that you kind of questioned. Honestly, at a national level, those were the two teams I was like, man, if they're not top 25 in your list, they got to be really high up there. I think you can prove your way through that. I think if they both take care of business, they will. I mean, Louisville, I think, will be a bit more of the attractive team. When you look at the stat line, I think that offense is going to be amazing. Georgia Tech, I think they have a lot of respect nationally. So many people are talking about watch out for the Jackets, watch out for them. So I think both of those teams have the opportunity. If they win games, they'll be ranked up there. I would not be shocked to see both of them top 25 when that first college football playoff ranking comes out.
Yeah, and the fact that the SEC has 10 teams, good for them. In fact, that without even knowing off the top of my head, I would probably say the SEC probably had 9 or 10 teams in the preseason top 25 last year. But you know what? As good as that league is, and I have nothing but respect for them because they do play big-time football. But you know what? They haven't won a semifinal national championship game in 2 years. The Big Ten's won the last 2 national championships. So you can give me all those teams you want in August, and I'll say it again, that AP poll gives you something to chew on for a couple days. But when we kick this thing off in Ireland next week with Kansas State and Iowa State, who, by the way, both are ranked in the top 25, it's game's on. I mean, injuries, ball bounces funny, couple upsets, winning close games, which is something I know we want to talk about in this edition. All that matters. So, fans can go crazy or get nervous that they're overranked or whatever. None of that matters. It truly does not matter. We're going to kick this bad boy off in 2 weeks and see where it goes.
And it wouldn't be August unless the Miami Hurricanes were being hyped up and into a top 10 team despite losing almost their entire offense. I know they have a good offensive line, but a lot of skill talent. Their quarterback is new. And so they find themselves in the top 10 yet again. And that's going to transition me kind of into these big perception games, as I'm labeling them, because how legitimate is someone like Miami's title chances, national title chances, when they have never won an ACC title and they have these big games looming early in the year? When you look at this, I've got the games on the screen, weeks 1 through 4. There's what I'm calling the ACC perception games. It's out of conference games against power teams that, could be a factor this year. Yep. When you look at that list, which of those week 1 matchups are you looking forward to the most?
Well, here's the thing. The ACC, to their credit, has done a great job scheduling. Now, I've said this 1,000 times. Anybody can literally load up and schedule. The deal for the conference is you got to start winning some of these games. And this is true whether we're talking about football or even basketball after the disaster, which was the ACC-SEC challenge last year, which kind of set the tone for men's basketball. Same thing with football. All of these games are important, to be honest with you. When you're in a position that the ACC is in which everybody looks at the SEC and the Big Ten as the two beasts, and rightfully so, given the money they generated, national championships and everything else, the conference has to be able to look at that list that you've got on that screen and go, guess what? You can't go 2-8, right? You got to be fighting in there 5-5. If you have a winning record, great. But all of those games are critical, especially teams that have that quote-unquote preseason rank. Clemson has a chance to hold serve at home against what should be a good LSU team. You mentioned Miami, always getting a bunch of preseason love, kind of like Texas A&M. of the SEC, who's always in the top 20 and never seems to win anything. Florida State has to bounce back. Again, they'll be an underdog at home against Alabama, but they can't be 2-10 in the ACC beating its chest. So I think all of those games are critically important. And if you're from a conference perspective, the only way to change the narrative is to win, period.
Yeah, I'm looking at this, and I remember back to last year. I remember us. I remember Florida State. Florida State got it started against a conference opponent, but then it just got worse and worse. Miami blew it at the end and cost us a chance to get an extra team in the playoff. And, of course, the Hokies, we couldn't handle even the least bit of expectations going into last year. And so there's a lot of critical games on here. That's for sure.
Yeah, and like even a game like one game you don't even have on the screen, even a game like East Carolina at NC State. Not that East Carolina is a world beater, but the kind of team, that in-state game at home, those are the kind of games you simply cannot lose if you're NC State or the ACC.
And they just lost that game in the bowl.
Yes.
Right. So, I mean, Dave Dorn, given his situation, that's a game you can't lose. I mean, talking about Virginia Tech, I mean, these first two games against SEC opponents, you simply cannot be 0-2. Period. Yep. End of story. I mean, fan base is great. Coach is a natural fit. All that makes sense. The only thing missing is, can you win? And given the new deal that's in place in the ACC, winning and eyeballs equates to more money. And so, you know exactly what's in front of you. Now you got to go do it. And that's what this league has to do.
As for that NC State ECU game, some people might not know outside the state of North Carolina, that's a big rivalry game.
Yep.
And it's always a close game. It's always really chippy. NC State lost the bowl game to them last year. There was we'll go back to this word, quite the kerfuffle at the end of that game. And then I believe it was the year before, NC State won at ECU on a missed field goal as time expired. So it's a close, tough rivalry game. Like, that's a big game for NC State and for the ACC if they want to have NC State's perception, right, be a little bit higher. And something else about these first 4-week games, we talked about Miami. Miami has 2 true home games to start this season against Notre Dame and against Florida, being played in, I don't even know what what borough of Miami that stadium is in now, but in Miami at Hard Rock. I mean, talk about an opportunity for Miami here to get off on the right foot. So,
and if I'm not mistaken, I don't think they leave the state of Florida till November. I mean,
I believe they don't go north of Dallas for a very long time
until they go to Blacksburg.
Yeah, they've got a really interesting schedule. But again, I expect Notre Dame to be really good. Carson Beck, is he going to be 100% healthy with all the weapons? That offensive line you mentioned should be outstanding. And there's going to be the pressure for Coach Cristobal to get Miami back to an ACC championship game. Since they joined the league, they've been to the ACC title game one time. Mark Richt got them there, and they got beat by 800 points to Dabo's guys in the championship. So, I mean, when they joined the league, I think everybody just assumed, hey, we're going to have Florida State, Miami all the time for an ACC championship game, and we've never seen the game, which is hard to believe.
It's extremely hard to believe. A couple more notes on these games. I have 14 games on the screen. And yes, there are some that I left off, as Mark indicated. Like, there's a Cal game against Oregon State. There's a BC game against Michigan State.
Right.
I was focusing more on, the upper echelon, and you guys know what I'm doing here. But of these 14 games, 11, I would say, are evenly matched. No one is expecting Syracuse to beat Tennessee. No one's expecting Florida State to beat Alabama. And really, no one's expecting VT to beat South Carolina. Maybe some people inside the Hokies sphere and some pundits, but I'm going by just like over touchdown spreads. Those are the 3 games over touchdown spreads. The rest of them are evenly matched games, and 7 of those 11 are at home games for the ACC teams, with a couple being neutral sites. So it is imperative that it's not just that they're evenly matched games. It's that Clemson is in the Death Valley in South Carolina. You have to win that game. If you don't win that game as our flag bearer, I mean, the ACC season could go to crap real fast.
Yeah, there's a lot of pressure on Clemson to hold serve in that game. And by the way, I used to work at LSU, and I'm a Clemson alum. I may be one of the few people that have been to both Clemson and LSU the same day for a home football game, and I can live to tell about it. But I will just say this: there is one Death Valley. The original is in the upstate of South Carolina, and then there's Tiger Stadium down in Baton Rouge, and they are both awesome places to watch games. Awesome.
Quick note on Clemson: they will be serving alcohol at the stadium this year. And they will still allow you to leave the stadium and come back, I believe.
Yeah.
So it is.
Speaking of LSU, I used to do a thing 100 years ago called the Southern Fried Football Tour. And we were up in Blacksburg, and Nick Saban was coaching LSU. And we actually went to Bristol Motor Speedway for a race and then took our 40-foot RV into Blacksburg for the LSU Virginia Tech game. And the night we rolled into Blacksburg, that Friday night, I think the LSU fans drank the town dry. They had to bring in the guards and everything else because they just, those LSU fans, I'm convinced they are somehow genetically immune to alcohol. So the Clemson selling alcohol in Death Valley, I hope that Budweiser, whoever their sponsor is, has loaded up, because that the group coming in from the Bayou, they will suck down a beverage. They're unbelievable.
That was 2002. It was essentially my first game at Virginia Tech. We had an exhibition game against Arkansas State the week before, but I was a freshman. And so my second game ever was that LSU game. And I remember reading in the Collegiate Times the next day about there being like a riot downtown.
Right. That's right.
So that I can verify Mark's story. And what is this? That's 23 years ago.
That's exactly right.
Bristol to Blacksburg. You must have been having a pretty fun weekend there.
Oh, it was great. That Southern Fried Football Tour. And again, it's the name of my company. I've had it since 1998. And we took that thing on the road for 13 or 14 years. I've seen everything in terms of football in the South. But that Southern Fried Football trip to Blacksburg, and the Hokies wore them out. And then, of course, they went down to Baton Rouge either the next year or the year after. And it wasn't pretty. So LSU got a little revenge. But, man, I tell you what, they wore Nick Saban out that afternoon. That was a great time.
Yeah, that home and home got delayed, and we played LSU the year they won the national title in 2007. And it was Tyrod Taylor's burn the red shirt game. It was not pretty. But I didn't go to that game, and I have yet to go to a game in Baton Rouge.
Right.
I know our friend Billy Ray Mitchell went there last year and put out a video on our channel. If you ever want to hear what a night game is about from his perspective, you can find that on the YouTube channel. And if you are watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe to our channel. We've been putting out a ton of content this summer, and guests like Mark make it fun and easy to keep cranking out that content. One last note about those games: the Big 12 versus ACC games are, I think, maybe some of the most critical of all of them, because those two conferences are viewed as being on equal footing. And you look at that TCU and UNC game, Mark, Bill Belichick's, first game. How do you think that's going to go?
I have no idea. I've probably been asked that question more. I probably had more questions asked about North Carolina and Bill Belichick than any other ACC team since his hiring. And I really have no clue. I mean, they've got, 60 or 70 new players. Something tells me it's either going to be great or a disaster. I have a hard time thinking that they're 6-6 or 5-7. The schedule is certainly favorable. We know he's a great college. We know he's a great NFL coach. I don't know what he's going to be like on Saturdays, or in this particular case, Monday, since they're going to play on Labor Day night. And TCU is supposed to be good. So I have no feel whatsoever with what North Carolina is going to look like. I really do. They're going to be. The day Belichick got hired, I said North Carolina is going to become the college football reality show. Everybody in America is going to keep an eye on North Carolina, whether they know where Chapel Hill is on the map or not, because Belichick's going to make that a really interesting storyline.
Baylor, I'm looking at that week 2 game, Sam. Baylor at SMU.
Yeah,
that's a big one.
Yeah,
it is really big. And I think Baylor, aren't they playing another big out of conference game?
They play Auburn week 1.
Yep.
Right.
They host Auburn. I believe they host them on Friday night. I might be wrong about that, but Baylor is one of these teams to kind of watch they have a lot of returning production, really like their quarterback.
Yep.
Sleepy team in the Big 12. Just watch out for the Baylor Bears.
They are the perfect snapshot of the team I was talking about the AP poll. Team that's not in the top 25, that, surprise, surprise at the end of the year. Here they are in the top 12 and fighting for a college football playoffs. It would not surprise me at all. at all.
Yeah,
It's a
they
big
they
team.
could definitely be deserving of a spot in the top 25 sooner than later with Sawyer Robertson back and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then Illinois Duke game, we'll talk about Vandy and VT a little bit later, but Illinois at Duke. Sam had CF Budge on the pod a couple weeks back, and he put out on his Twitter yesterday like the Illinois at Duke upset is like the most obvious upset coming this year, and I thought that was really funny.
You know, Manny Diaz is a really good football coach. He's a great dude, and he's a really good coach. And Duke is spending money. When you go look at what they've done from a recruiting perspective, you walk around, as I call it, Wild Wade Outdoor Stadium, the improvements that they've made in that department, they have been sleepy good. And for a guy that rolled into town a year ago and almost had no staff, no players, and they were on the fringe winning 10 games last year, he did a phenomenal coaching job. And they've gone out. Of course, Mensah comes in at quarterback, who is a really dynamic athlete at quarterback. So, Duke's going to be an interesting team. And they're probably going to be somebody that nobody's talking about, but that would not surprise me if they win a bunch of games because the guy's a good coach.
They have continuously made the investment, whether it was at the end of Cutcliffe, they started really staffing it out. And then Elko comes in and was turnkey. We didn't know it was going to be like that, but they beat Clemson and he was great. And Manny Diaz has picked up right where Elko left off. And it's been a very impressive program to watch. I mean, they beat the crap out of us last year. We saw it firsthand. A question about just the ACC before we get to kind of a little bit of just playoff formatting stuff. We need this year to be very much unlike last year. We need the ACC to make a statement. What do you think would do the ACC better service, Mark? Clemson winning it all or us getting 3 teams in the playoff?
All the above. That's if Jim Phillips was watching this right now, he answered it before I did. All the above. I thought getting 2 teams in last year was important, even though SMU on the road at Penn State, Clemson on the road at Texas, certainly both underdogs, and they both lost. But I think getting 2 teams in last year was important. The deeper this league can go, the better off it's going to be. But you also got to be able to make some noise once you get in it. So I think the answer to the question would be Clemson winning the national championship. Because if you do that, that would kind of raise everybody else up by going, hey, guess what? Best team in college football plays in our league. But, that whole list for the league, quite frankly, it is all of this. It's all 14 games that you put on the screen a second ago. You can't sit there and go 3-11 in those kind of games and say, hey, we're in great shape. You're not. You got to win those games. You got to have a team that's going to be a threat to win the national championship. I think Clemson, if they stay healthy, has a chance to do that. I do think Miami, I keep saying it every year, is due for a breakout to be a factor again. And I keep telling you about Louisville, Georgia Tech. I think SMU is going to be really good. Rhett Lashley, they've got great resources. They got a quarterback. They made the transition seamlessly last year. I think the league's got some quality depth, to be honest with you. But a team to win the national championship kind of just shuts everybody up.
Yeah.
And that's the question is, how do we get to that national champion, right? Because it seems like this sport is having some issue landing on how we get to that national champion.
But this could be one of those years too, Sam. We got, I think, again, going back to the AP poll, since you guys love all that stuff, 6 different teams received a first place vote. And I don't think we've had that many teams get a first place vote in 10 years. So it feels like it's kind of wide open. Again, I don't know how good Texas is. Ohio State will find out right from the get-go in Columbus with those 2 teams. Penn State still has to prove their worth. I know they finally won some games last year in the playoff, but James Franklin has a reputation of never being able to win big games. So I think there's question marks throughout. And again, we'll start getting some answers coming up here in the next couple of weeks.
And there is a little bit of a shrinking of, like, the top has come down in college football, and then like from the 40s have come up. Yeah. And so you do have maybe a bigger amount of teams that can compete for a national title,
it certainly feels that way. Listen, and when this college football playoff started, it was Bama and Clemson, right? And then eventually Georgia started doing their thing. LSU had their spike year, but it's still been Bama, Ohio State, Clemson. But this year, it just feels like, it could be 7 or 8 different teams. I think the last time a team started outside the top 6 to win the national championship was Florida State back in 2013. So that's how far back you have to go. But this year feels like there's a lot of teams that can have a chance to truly win the whole thing.
Which is why it's fun that we have the playoff here. And I want to ask you kind of your opinion on it, but we're have 12 now. They're fixing the seeding this year, so we don't have that kind of wonky thing happen. But there's been a lot of talk about what it's going to be next year and beyond in terms of how many teams is it, what's the format, and they're discussing this 4-4-2-2 model, and then I guess 1G5, and then the 5+11 model. Do you have a preference from those two, Mark? Is there like...
You know what my preference is? And this will piss some people off. I get it. Let's go get, I don't care if it's 12, 16, 24. You pick the number. Again, TV's going to write a bigger check. When they write a big enough check, that's when the number will move from 12. But let's just go get the best teams. I mean, we're all worried about, hey, the Big Ten should have 4. The SEC should have 4. Listen, if the SEC's got 10 teams that are worthy of being in the top 20, and they're that good, I wouldn't mind if the SEC had 10 teams. I wouldn't mind if the ACC had 7. Go give me the best 12 teams. I don't care what league you're in. I mean, as a fan sitting on the couch, when we get to December and January, I want to see the best teams play. I don't need it to be political. I don't need it to be, hey, we reached a quota nonsense. I mean, there'll be some years the Big Ten's probably got 6 or 7 teams that should be in. There'll be some years they don't deserve 4. So right. I'm all for putting the best teams in there and let's go play.
Sam, what are your thoughts on that? Because I've always been of the opinion I don't want to assign amounts of numbers either.
I think that's a dangerous road to go down, right? Because then you're kind of artificially, even if the SEC and Big Ten are deeper, better, whatever, I think you're kind of artificially prescribing that before the season. I think you rank them and you go, because I'm a G5 fan at heart, RIP to the Mountain West. Boise was clearly one of the top 12 teams last year. And they showed it. Like, they played Penn State really, really tough. And that was a Penn State team that was like 2 or 3 plays away from being in the Natty. So those teams, when they're good enough, they're going to be ranked high enough. I think you just got to let it play out. But if I'm like almost selfishly from an ACC standpoint, I understand too that this league and how it's shaping up for the next few years, there's a lot of programs that I think are going to eat each other up, right? Your Louisville, SMU, Miami, we'll see what Georgia Tech looks like. They're certainly picking up, and knock on wood, hopefully the Hokies get back to where they belong. But I don't see a lot of teams that are going to go 10-2, 11-1. I see a lot of teams that are going to go 9-3. And if you're a conference, and this is probably what Jim Phillips, if he's listening, I hope he is. That'd be kind of cool. You need some money here, and it's going to be really dangerous. Of what we saw the last 6 or 7 years since this playoff started in college football, the SEC gets a little bit of a boost, and it's unfortunate, but you do have to play the political game a bit. If I was college football czar, president, whatever, for however many days, I'm going, 1 through 16, and let's play it out.
Sam, and if your point is right, that the league is going to be loaded with a bunch of 9-3, 8-4 kind of teams, the only way those teams are going to get the nod goes back to the list that Pete put together earlier. You have to beat people of note outside of your footprint, because when you don't, it will be used against you. Even if that team is worthy of being in, they go, yeah, but you know what? You had a chance in week 1 to play somebody from the Big Ten or the SEC or even the Big 12, and you got boat race. So it automatically shuffles you down the list. So that's why those games are so critical, that the ACC is not going to get the benefit of the doubt with a bunch of 9-3, 8-4s unless they're beating people's brains out outside their footprint.
And I think that's why you saw Virginia Tech make some scheduling moves, get ODU off the schedule for a few years. You got to free up some space, not only to play your rivals like West Virginia, which should be played every year, but to play some of these bigger teams, to build up that resume, to build up that TV revenue. So that'll be really interesting. And do you want to talk Hokies now, Pete? Do you want to move it?
Yeah, we can move to Hokies. The only other thing I would say about the playoff is I don't want to really expand it anymore. I think that 12 is enough. I could do 8. I do love having those home playoff games on campus. I do think that's a very cool thing we're getting right now with the 12-teamer. And then you have 4 byes. So you get 4 byes for really, really good teams in theory. And then you get 4 home games for the next 4 teams. I kind of like that balance there, but we're going to ruin it. We're going to keep getting bigger and bigger. And some people think we've already ruined it. So I'm just glad we have at least some way to play it out on the field. We didn't have this back in 2000 or when did the BCS start? 98. We didn't have it before that. There, you got teams like undefeated Penn State in 94 getting nothing, and so I'm grateful that we're in this time, but there's always going to be debate. There's always going to be outrage and people not liking the format, but I think 12 is good. I kind of wish we'd stay there, but it's going to keep getting bigger.
But I will say this. I don't like the buys because it's too big of an advantage. And I know you got to put some emphasis on making the regular season important. But if it does go to 16, I have no problem with that first round being 8 games on college campuses, 16 at 1, 15 at 2.
That does sound fun.
I mean, those games, those environments, those potential matchups, which we would never see, to me, that would be fantastic television. Be fun.
All right. Well, as I said at the top of the show, Two Deep is brought to you by Jack and Coke. You can see the can right on your screen. 2 legends, 1 can, Jack and Coke. The #1 cocktail in the world is now available in a can. We talked about it all last year, and it's true. Jack Daniel's Tennessee whiskey mixed with Coca-Cola or Coca-Cola Zero Sugar, available in your can at your local grocery and convenience stores. 2 legends, 1 can, Jack and Coke, ready to drink. That's RTD. Find them in your liquor stores, wherever you get your alcohol. And as always, please drink responsibly. Jack and Coke. I want to take a quick drink break, and I'll ask Mark first. What are you drinking?
This is Woodford. No disrespect, Jack Daniels. It's all part of the family. This is Woodford Reserve Double Oaked, 1 ice cube. That is my go-to.
Oh, yeah, that Double Oak. Sam was drinking some of that not too long ago on this show.
I got about 1 little drink of it left upstairs. So
it is smooth. It's the perfect way to bring in the evening.
Love it. Sam, what are you having?
Absolutely. I'm finishing up. This is my last one of the Red Oak Bavarian Amber Lager. Red Oak from just outside Raleigh, North Carolina. Great brewery. They do a really good job with this beer. I talked about it on our ACC preview show with Pete. So if you want me to get into the nerdy beer stuff, you can go listen to that one. Really good beer. I really enjoy it.
I'm just taking one last sip here to make sure I know what I'm talking about. I'm having the Trogs Sip and Sear. It's good. It's a fireside lager. It's got that amber color similar to what Sam's having.
Yeah.
Definitely leaning towards the fall type of beer.
We're getting there.
It's somewhere close to a Yinling. You could take a bunch of these things down. Not too strong. I want to say it's in the 5s. Oh, it's only 4.5. So don't mind if I do. Maybe I'll have another. But the Fireside Lager by Trogs. I love Trogs out of Pennsylvania. If you've never been up to the brewery, it's a very cool place. It's right outside of, I want to say it's outside of Hershey. But Trogs Fireside Lager, Sip and Sear. I'll give it a 3.75. I'm very much enjoying it. Mark, on the bourbon note, I know you, Woodford, I think that's what you're having last year. You have the double oaked. Have you ever done the infinity bottle? Do you know what I'm talking about with the bourbon?
I do, but I've not done that. I've done the tours, but I've not done the infinity. No, I have not.
I've talked about it with Sam before. It sounds like such an intriguing prospect where you like take the end of your bottles, like maybe what Sam has left in his double oaked, and you pour it into and all the different whiskeys you have over the year where there might not be enough to make a drink. You pour it into this bottle and you kind of get a flavor profile of your favorite whiskeys.
I think that if you drink enough of whatever your favorite brown water is, you can almost fake yourself out to think that you've already done that, even though you haven't.
Fair enough. Yeah, you might be right about that one. And I don't know how like the ass end of my wild turkey would taste with some of those other whiskeys, but always got some 101 in the house. If you're a Hokie person, you probably do. All right. When we talked about the Hokies a year ago, some sky high expectations.
Yeah.
We saw a lot of national guys come out. We had Pat McAfee putting us in the playoff, ACC champ. Matt Berry, ACC champ. Pat Forty picked us as an ACC champ. McMurphy as the 10 seed. Trevor Sycamore from PFF, ACC champ. So it was more hype than we've had in a number of years. We had Mark on. We talked about the of some of the games where Vanderbilt came up, but it wasn't necessarily a super fear factor as what we experienced a couple weeks later. But now for Hokies fans, especially some of the casuals, the sky is just straight up falling. I mean, we belly flopped our season. Brent Pry is on the hot seat. Cover 3 joked about him being gone by the time the Miami game even takes place. Mark, what's your high-level assessment of the state of our Hokies right now?
Well, I do think the first 2 weeks are critical, right? I mean, you just cannot be 0-2. South Carolina's going to be a fist fight. The whole Beamer thing is going to get talked up like crazy the next couple weeks. He's done a really nice job in Columbia with Sellers being back. Again, they're ranked in the top 15, even though they lost a lot of dudes off that team. That was a talented defensive team last year. They got a lot of holes to fill. But, in some respects, I think sometimes teams, coaches, programs are better when the pressure is off. And Virginia Tech's not the only one. I think NC State, to me, kind of falls under that category. North Carolina falls under that category to me, too, in years past. That when there was expectations to be good, they didn't handle it very well. And when all of a sudden you get a sense that, well, I'm not sure what this team's going to be like, all of a sudden good things happen. And the one thing I know for a fact that must change, and it's got to change beginning week 1, is close games. I mean, 1-12 under the regime in close games. You flip that, and all of a sudden we're having a different conversation. I mean, if that's 12-1 and not 1-12, we're now talking about Virginia Tech not only as an ACC champ, but preseason top 15 hype and all. I mean, that's where you are. So that has got to change. That is a mindset. That is coaching. That is confidence. That's players buying in. Hey, when it gets crunch time in the fourth quarter, let's go close the stinking deal. 0-5 last year, if I'm not mistaken, off the top of my head, in one-score games. That has got to change, because if that doesn't change, quite frankly, how do you ever get to 9 or 10 wins? You're not going.
You're not going to get there. And from what you know about the program, and from what Pete and I know about the program, where they sit financially in the pecking order, geographically being in the state of Virginia, is this program still should we still expect top 3, top 5 of the ACC every single year, or are those days gone?
No, I don't think those days are gone, but it can't just be assumed that, hey, this is where we belong, because you got to prove it. And the only way you do that is to win. And again, I'm married to a Hokie. I don't need to tell you guys or anybody that watches this podcast about the passion, which is Virginia Tech football fans and how they support that program. And I think Coach Pry is a perfect fit for the school. I mean, he gets it. And that's why I think folks on the outside, like myself, if you will, when I look at Virginia Tech, it's like, man, you want them to be so good, because you know what a Saturday at Lane's like. You know that fan base is going to travel when the team's rocking and rolling. They've got the brand when it's on, but I don't think you can assume this anymore that, hey, Virginia Tech's one of those teams. I've said this for God knows how long when it comes to ACC football. There are 4 teams, in my opinion, that have the brand that you expect them, that when they're good, life is great. Virginia Tech's one of them, Florida State, Miami, Clemson. Quite frankly, all 4 of those teams have never been really good at the same time. If you go back to when Miami joined the league, Virginia Tech joined the league, one would be up, Florida State would be down. Clemson's down, Miami, whatever the combination is. I think it's really hurt the ACC, because those are 4 national football brands that when they're winning 10 or more games, fan base, players, crowd, atmosphere, the environment, people talking about, that's what this league needs desperately. So Virginia Tech's got to be one of those teams for the league. But just to assume that, hey, Virginia Tech's going to be one of those top 4 or 5, that would be a mistake. They've got to go earn it. They got to go prove it. And the way you do that is you got to win close games. I mean, that number is just like a neon sign.
It's jarring. It's a statistical anomaly in college football. And, if Virginia Tech is, even 5-8 in those games, what's the difference? How are we talking about this program? Right. It is crazy. It's a matter of 1 or 2 plays every game. However, that's why you do the fall camp. That's why you do spring two-a-days. That's why you lift a little extra in the summer, is for those 1 or 2 plays.
But, I will say this, you're going to be an underdog against South Carolina. And again, I think Beamer's done a great job, like I said, but they've got some pieces that I don't know the answers to either. So we're going to find out in week 1 down in Atlanta what that's all about. And that's why I don't make a big deal about preseason polls, because I believe me, there's going to be scores in week 1. When you see it, you're going to go, can you believe X beat Y? I mean,
we were part of it last year. We
No.
were the double-digit favorite who lost week 1, the only one. And so why it had to happen to us, I don't know. That's what the football gods wanted. But Sam, you had talked about with Beamer, and we'll emphasize the South Carolina point and we'll move on. But like the weight that must be on Shane Beamer's shoulders.
Yeah. I think this game is obviously huge for him, as it should be, right? And I think it's very, very big for Virginia Tech. If you think Brent Pry will not be harping on the fact of how big this game is for Virginia Tech as a football culture, you're kidding yourself. He's going to milk that cow for all it's worth. I think Shane Beamer internally probably feels that. Anybody would. I don't know if this game means as much to South Carolina as it does Virginia Tech. I think part of that is because of what South Carolina has left on the schedule. You look at the second half of their schedule, and it's blue blood after blue blood. So I think Virginia Tech, maybe if you want to give some intangibles, has a leg up there, potentially. I think being the underdog finally might help Virginia Tech in one of these games. But that's kind of my thought. Mark, is an objective observer, does Tech have any chance in this one?
Yeah, of course they do. And I think the other thing too is, and I'll just take South Carolina's perspective. To talk about being so close last year to being in the college football playoff. And when they were really good, they were one of the 12 best teams last year when they were good. But they also had nights where you're like, whatever. But they now got a number 13 on their name, right? There's a 13 on their chest, where the expectation is, if you're in Columbia, South Carolina, oh man, we're playing Virginia Tech from the ACC, we'll wear them out. Okay, you mentioned the whole Beamer relationship with Virginia Tech, and that's going to get talked up like nobody's business. You still got to hold serve. And, I don't care. You pick the sport. Sometimes the hardest thing in the world to do is close. We're just talking about the Hokies being 1-12 in close games. South Carolina will have to close. And I still think they've got major question marks in some of their defensive spots where they lost some really good players in the National Football League. But, Kyron Jones is going to have to be good. Virginia Tech, maybe having all that pressure off of them in some respects, they can play free and easy, even though there'll be tons of pressure on the coaching staff to win. It's a fascinating game. It's another, not only a critical game for Virginia Tech, but a really important game for the ACC.
Yeah, and we've made the coaching changes that we felt like needed to be made. New strength and conditioning, new coordinators, new offensive line coach. Pry has seemingly done everything he needed to do to try to shake that 1-12 juju out of the building. And we're hoping that that's the case. And in college football, Mark, you've probably seen this too, where there are these teams that experience the year after the year. Yeah. Where you think you're going to be real good because you brought all these guys back. But in the meantime, you've raised the talent floor by recruiting and portal and everything else. And maybe the next year when the expectations change a bit, that's the year you take off.
No, I'll go to Lane Stadium a couple of years ago. North Carolina was going to be great. They got Hal back, and North Carolina had all this hype. They rolled into Lane Stadium. That crowd was juiced out of their mind. And North Carolina, after one series, Mac Brown knew, we got a problem. And that team never found it, despite all the expectations. And it was because of week 1, when nobody knows how good anybody is. Crowd got into it. Crazy stuff happens. Team plays with their hair on fire. And off to the races you go. And trust me, I don't know who it'll be, but there'll be 3 or 4 scores in week 1 of the college football season that on Monday, people are going to be talking about, man, can you believe what happened this weekend? It's why we love the game. Because
it's so true.
As much as you think you don't know squat till we kick this thing off and see where it goes.
I know. I cannot wait for week 0 and week 1. Before we get to your career, we've got Vandy in week 2.
My career, man. I'd rather talk football.
Just a couple of questions. We're not we're not going to embarrass Mark, but you've had such a good career. We want to get into that in just one second. But Vandy week 2. Last thing about the Hokies. Yeah. Do you think we've made enough improvements and we'll be well prepared enough to take care of our business in Lane Stadium in week 2.
You have to. I mean, I can't tell you how many. I wish I had $1 for every time I've talked about Virginia Tech holding serve at home.
Mm-hmm.
Period. I don't care if it's an ACC game, non-ACC, whatever. And I don't need to draw up all those numbers. You guys can figure all that stuff out. That is a must-win game. Now, listen, the South Carolina game, you're a dog, neutral site. I get all that stuff. But when you're at home and it's one of those games, that becomes a must-win game for Virginia Tech, especially with what happened last year. And players and coaches afterwards said, hey, you know what? Maybe we're drinking the Kool-Aid, the rat poison, bought in the hype. And the way that game unfolded, Virginia Tech must win that game at home, period.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
I couldn't have said it better myself, Mark.
I don't think it's an option. And I don't want to be, Nostradamus here and playing the doomsday scenarios, but it does feel like everyone knows you can't go 0-2 in those first 2 games. And unfortunately, if they do, if you're losing to Vanderbilt in a revenge game at night in Lane Stadium to open the season, it becomes a little bit of a dead man walking for Brent Pry. And that's always going to hang over the rest of the season. You got to win that game. And I think it's not being talked about as a must win, but it does feel like Virginia Tech is just due to win one of these games in these big spots because they've been so close so many times up since, I think the last one was that North Carolina game after COVID.
The damn Miami game last year.
Yeah, right. The flip side to all this is, what's the expectation if you're 2-0? We haven't had that conversation yet.
Let's have that conversation.
We can't. We as Hokies can't even process that, Mark.
I get that, but you know what? If you knock off South Carolina again, I know if's the biggest word in sports, but all of a sudden you come home, the crowd. I never worry about Virginia Tech's home crowd. They're going to be ready to roll. And all of a sudden you get to 2-0, and all of a sudden it's going to be Virginia Tech in the top 25. And about time we got some respect. So like I said, it is a thin line, man. It's the beauty of sport, right? It's why we love it as fans, and you never know. You can't predict it. You have no idea how it's going to play out. But, those are 2 huge games right from the get-go for the Hokies, no question.
So we're talking to you. You're retired. It's the end of your career. You still got some logs on the fire. You're going to get back into something. I know I could see a podcast coming or who knows what, but I just want to take a couple minutes to look back. Everyone has a beginning. So where did you get your start? And did you have like a welcome to broadcasting moment at one of your first gigs?
I swear, if you would have asked me this question to start off, I'd still be telling you the story, because my story of how I got involved in broadcasting is so bizarre and so stupid that every time I have a speech to students and I tell them this story, they look at me like, well, that's impossible how that happened to you. And I don't even know if I can give it to you in a thumbnail sketch, but I was working at the Blockbuster Bowl. This was 1991 or something like that. And Raycom Sports owned the rights to it. And I was there for 1 year, met a bunch of people and left. 6 or 7 years later, I got a phone call from a guy that was with Raycom, I was in Charlotte, had a sports marketing company. He called me up and said, hey, listen, I'm doing some work with this new sports talk radio station, WFNZ in Charlotte. Would you like to meet the guy from the standpoint to talk from marketing? I said, sure, I'd love to. So I met with this guy. He came in from WEEI in Boston, and I walked into his office. He wasn't there. He finally showed up. He shows up, typical Bostonian guy, drinking Dunkin' Donuts coffee, going 200 miles an hour. He says, you're Mark, right? I said, yes. He goes, do you know Matt Pinto? I said, never heard of him. He screams down the hallway. This guy, Matt Pinto, who's on in the afternoons, comes in. He says, you talk to Matt. I'll see you guys later this afternoon. I'm gone. And that was the meeting. And I had just gotten married. We had a little girl. The meeting lasted 5 minutes. Pinto looked at me and said, well, I'll see you this afternoon. I said, well, I'm not on the air. I'm here for a marketing guy. God walked right out. I was sitting in the guy's office by myself. I went home. My wife said, that was what happened to your meeting. I said, it was the worst meeting I've ever had. So she goes, what are you going to do? I said, well, I guess I'm going to go back and go on the air. So I did. We did 1 hour on the radio. It went by in 10 seconds. I had so much fun. Took off the headset thinking, this Kellogg guy, the boss, was going to say, hey, you did a great job. Nobody was there to say good job, bad job, you suck, whatever the case may be. I was so pissed off. I drove home. I went to that radio station twice in the same day, mad as all get out when I got home. My wife said, well, how'd it go? I said, you didn't listen? She goes, no. And I'm really PO'd. That night, the guy that lined up the meeting called me. And I got on the phone and I cussed him out for 3 minutes and hung the phone up on him. And my wife said, what are you doing? I said, I don't want to talk to that guy. He's wasted my time. She goes, well, how do you know? What is he calling about? I said, I have no idea. He ended up calling me back 4 or 5 days later and said, hey, listen, have you settled down? I said, I have. He said, we want to offer you the job to host the 12 to 3 slot. I said, what are you talking about? I got a sports marketing company. How can I do it? He said, do you want it or not? My wife looked at me like, hey, just take the job. You'll have fun with it. So I did. The rest is history. It turned out to be prime time with the Pac-Man. I ended up syndicating the show. It went into Sirius XM. That morphed into ESPN. And 30 years later, I called it a career. Crazy.
That is crazy, man. So that really was your welcome to broadcasting moment, just like a five-second meeting saying you're going to be on the air.
When people say, well, how do I get into it? I say, well, you don't want to hear my story because it's so ridiculous that you think I'm making it up. But just right place, right time. And by the late 90s, the craze of sports talk radio was getting ready to take over. And being down here in Charlotte, again, we kind of a melting pot of all that, of everything, pro, college, NASCAR. It was just the right place at the right time.
You said 1991 Blockbuster Bowl?
Yeah.
Do you remember who played in that game?
It was Colorado and Alabama.
Sharp as a tack.
Yeah, look at that.
And one of my job, one of the reasons I left the Blockbuster Bowl after 1 year is one of my jobs for the bowl game was to take care of Ralphie the buffalo. And that thing smelled so bad. I was like, what am I doing with my life? This buffalo was looking at me right in the eye before we let it loose on the field. And I was like, you know what? 1 year doing this stupid job, I got to get out of Fort Lauderdale. And that was it. The rest was history. I was done.
That's incredible. And when you look back on all of your assignments, you've done so many different styles of media since you came on in the 90s, and it has evolved so much. Even even Pete, since even you started this show 11 years ago now,
2015. Yeah.
It's changed so much. What has made you the most proud of what you've done in your career, and why was it taking care of Ralphie the buffalo?
It wasn't Ralphie. I'll be honest with you. The most fun I ever had was working local radio because there were no rules. I could be as creative as I wanted to be. The creation of the Southern Fried Football Tour, the Weiner Line, the characters we had on that show. That show today would be great. I think it was way ahead of its time. So I had more fun, I think, doing local radio. Even more so than the national stuff on Sirius, more so than the ESPN stuff. TV was totally different. But local radio to me, back then, I know it's changed even today. It was just fun because every day was like, hey, let's see what kind of trouble we can get into today, right? And you're going to get called into the principal's office, but you really knew that there really wasn't going to be a penalty. So we screwed up. We'll try it again tomorrow and see where it goes. But to me, local radio was the most fun. But everybody's got their own deal.
Yeah, that early 90s, mid 90s, whatever you want to call it, local radio stuff. I was listening to a lot of Philly talk radio as I grew up.
Crazy.
And it just had to be fun and crazy, and the callers and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
That's cool.
We have post-game callers.
Yeah.
On the post games for after Virginia Tech games, you'll have people call into a voicemail, and then we'll play a little montage of them before the show. Everyone loves it. And I think some people, especially younger people, around my age, don't realize that was like a norm.
Oh, yeah.
That was a staple of sports media.
Calls. To me, that was the most fun every day. And when there were so many people that they were actually much better than I was, that were so great in terms of being characters and offbeat. You'd laugh and cut up and make fun of them, and they'd make fun of you. And you'd go. We had 4-hour shows that we were laughing so hard to be like, man, I can't believe we have to go home. It was just that much fun. And so I miss that part a lot because you don't get that at all with television. And that was what was a little different with ESPN. Sirius XM, I had a bunch of callers and all that stuff, and they've kind of gotten away from that concept really for the most part. So I hope it goes back, and everything kind of goes through ebbs and flows and different trends and so forth. But to me, that relationship with the caller, the listener, was always paramount. It was always the most important.
will you be taking in any live football games this year? I'm
Yes.
curious. Like, you've traveled so much. Is that still something you want to do this year?
Oh yeah, I mean, I want to travel the world, but as far as college football goes, there's probably going to be an I'm just going to give you a little tease. There's probably going to be an announcement in the next week to 10 days about something I'm working on. So I'm just going to give you a little tease of that. But will you see me at college football games? The answer is absolutely you will.
Well, I love to hear that, and I'm hoping one of those games is in Blacksburg with your wife. Come on down. I know you probably got some friends down there.
Well, I will say this too. Since I announced my retirement, I got so many people have reached out and phone calls, texts, but I got 3 handwritten notes from 3 Hokies that I have such great respect for. But Whit Babcock and wrote me a really great note. And Coach Pry did the same thing. And
wow,
I have so much affinity for your men's basketball program and coach, and he wrote a note too, which is great. So I mean, I love the handwritten notes. So the cool thing the last couple months is when I go check the mailbox, there's no telling where I'm going to get a note from. So, but the Hokies were, again, all 3 of those guys are just class personified, and really respect them. And again, I'm married to a Hokie. I kind of feel I've always been kind of Virginia Tech related in some shape, way, or form. But that was very, very cool and really a touch of class.
Well, we appreciate you sharing that because that is cool. And I'd ask you to plug something, but you already kind of gave us your little tease there.
When the story breaks, you'll be able to say, "Oh yeah, we knew that." I mean, where you guys been, man? We had that on Too Deep like a week ago.
Yeah, it was 9:00 on a Tuesday night in August, and Mark was telling us his update, and after a couple bourbons. So yes, no, this has been a lot of fun. We cannot thank you enough for spending your time with us, because clearly you've had a lot going on this summer, despite being retired. You've got things going on. So thank you so much for being here, Mark.
Yeah, Pete, Sam, anytime. Again, it's a phone call. I'd love to join you. And again, always rooting for the Hokies. It's good for obviously Hokie Nation, but it's great for the league, and a bunch of really, really good people up there. It's easy to root for.
Awesome. Well, thank you again. And Sam, I want you to stick around. We're going to do a couple more news and notes, but Mark, we will say goodbye.
Cheers, boys.
Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you.
All right. I'll do one sip for that. Cheers right there. I wanted to let you guys.
A pleasure.
Yeah, that was fantastic. Let me let the listeners know that we're also brought to you by Roback. So we had Jack and Coke. It's still on the screen, but Roback has been with us for a long time, and they dropped that Sandman polo. We talked about it on our last episode. It's a Metallica-themed Roback polo, hourglass, guitar. The thing is very fresh. You can use code 2DEEPVT to get 20% off your first Roback order. If you've already used an email address to get that 20% off, use a different email address. You can just make a new one. You can use your work email, your wife's email, anybody's, and get that Sandman, in addition to all the other colleges, all the other Hokie styles that they have, the women's stuff, the joggers, quarter zips, all the good stuff. You guys know it. 2DEEPVT for 20% off. Roback Crave Activity. I also wanted to let you guys know I got some sweet swag. I put up a reel about our koozies, but I've also got these fresh little Kiss Cut stickers. Yeah, this thing comes out of the white. That'll hit your cooler. Look great. When we're in Atlanta, we will have these, but I will also be doing some stuff to get them to some of the listeners that won't be in Atlanta, but we'll keep you posted on all that. I got the on the back here, Sam, a podcast hosted by Hokies about football and beer.
That pretty much describes it. That's pretty good.
It fits during football season. It's going to be about basketball this year, later in the year, but for right now, it's about football and beer.
I mean, my two deep koozies that I have become very, very faded, and they're kind of like yellow and red at this point after years and years of use. So due for a new one, that's for sure.
I will have half of my suitcase full of koozies when I come down.
TSA is going to be real confused.
Like, what is this large package of orange that you have here, sir? All right, VT notes, man. Whit Babcock making a PowerPoint. In addition to writing a handwritten note to Mark Packer, Whit Babcock has been working on a slide deck, Sam, and Doug Bowman went through it in detail on X. And I don't have the wherewithal to go through all of it right now, but it seemed important.
It is. I mean, I haven't gone through all of the nitty gritty details. I've went through Doug's Twitter thread, X thread, whatever we're calling it these days, and looked at some of those slides and then kind of looked at some that all of those slides have sources, and then you can kind of follow those sources and play the Wikipedia game a little bit with it. But I think it's really, really telling about where Virginia Tech is as an athletic department, more so than a football program, and where I just, it keeps getting reaffirmed to me that this program is more built by the fans than I think any major athletic department is right now. It is ridiculous how much of the fiscal responsibility is on the donors, the Hokie Club.
Yeah, and two things. One, this is because he's preparing for a meeting on the 18th of August with the Board of Visitors, and he will present this slide deck along with some hopefully very choice sayings and words to get them fork over more cash, because the TLDR on this, Sam, is we need more investment in athletics. That's essentially what this slide deck comes down to.
Yeah, we're asking for an allowance raise, and I don't know if we've done all our chores.
Yeah,
that's kind of what it feels like.
You might need to get out there and cut the grass.
Yeah, I might need to cut the grass.
We also got a new basketball court. That's another fun news and note. No more purple on the basketball court. No more buildings on the basketball court. What are your thoughts?
So I will say, like, the skyline on the court was really in vogue when they started that.
Yeah, I've got my
there we go.
Burris
We got Burris right there.
Like,
It was really big in the NBA, and a couple other colleges did it, and Tech did it, and it was like, okay, those buildings not being next to each other kind of bugged me. Like, it would be like if the Knicks decided to put the Empire State Building next to the Statue of Liberty.
Oh, it wasn't to scale? Tower. Is that what you didn't like about it?
No, like, they weren't next to it. It wasn't a skyline. It was like three separate pictures. It didn't make any sense.
I know what you mean.
And then it was also purple, not maroon. And for a school,
the lane was like that light,
yeah,
purpley maroon.
I think it's I think it's an upgrade. I think it looks really sleek. I think it looks good. Glad they got a new court. I think there are also some new additions being made to Casa Coliseum, maybe in the video board realm.
Ooh.
So we should see that in a couple of days. But I think they're making the upgrades that are needed while keeping the charm of the old barn that is Casa Coliseum.
It looks like we have a court for what could be a top 25 team. Not that we will be, just that we want to get serious, and we're putting a serious court down to make sure we're serious.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a huge, huge upgrade.
All right. In recruiting, we got a commitment from 2026 quarterback Cole Bergeron, 6'4.5", 210. A big boy he's graduating this year, but that's a big boy. Lafayette, Louisiana, an 89 on 247, the 27th ranked QB in the country, and a .88 in the composite. Had offers from GT, Colorado, Indiana, and UCLA, among others. That's a nice pickup.
Yeah, I think, if you can hang on to it, right, that's a nice pickup. And I will caveat all commits with that, but I will also say, I think Virginia Tech is kind of going hard on quarterback out of high school. I get this sense that this program wants to be active in the portal, but also wants a high school to Virginia Tech quarterback pipeline. I don't think they want to live in the portal for a quarterback, especially since we've seen big time quarterbacks at the power conference level are not entering the portal like they were the first few years. You'll have your outliers like Nico and Carson Beck, who had kind of toxic situations, but you're not going to have many guys moving inside the power conference. They tend to get taken
care of by their own schools.
Exactly. And now every now and again, a Darian Mensah will come up and something like that. But it sounds like Duke is paying Darian Mensah. I don't think Tech wants to quite do that right now. I think they want to get somebody from high school. So I think that's kind of their strategy. They've been active outside of the state of Virginia for quarterback as well, because I don't know how much quarterback talent is inside the state of Virginia right now.
Well, you'll save yourself a ton of money. Unless you go get a Bryce Underwood, you will save yourself a ton of money recruiting at a high school and developing and counting on that guy to burst on the scene. Now, the next year, you might have to pay some money to keep him, but you might get a hometown discount, and you got him on the cheap for the first couple of years. So you need to do this if you're Virginia Tech. You need to develop out of high school from a 3-star to a starting quarterback.
Yeah, and I believe there's another quarterback recruit, maybe from Georgia, that Tech feels pretty good about, at least being in the final running for. So they do have some options here. And I'm excited to see how it turns out. They will need an influx of talent, and I think they're going to need some veteran leadership in that quarterback room.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see. But they have Pop Watson waiting in the wings here, which I think you feel pretty good about how his career has gone, and a couple of young guys like AJ Brand, Keldon Ryan. Like, you feel good, but you got to keep it going because these guys don't normally stay backups for too long. Pop Watson is a bit of an outlier there.
He is. He really is. We are. I mean, it's hard to say if we're lucky to have him because we might not have him next year, but it is surprising that we have both him and Kyron. If Kyron were to get injured, we at least have a guy who's won an FBS game or a power game and could come in and start for us.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's get to some camp media day notes. Last Wednesday was media day for VT football. Our guy, Ryan Castle, was there doing interviews and taking notes. Colby Crawford also there for 247. So I got some notes from him. I got notes from the article Ryan put out there. It's on our website, sonsofsaturday.com. But Pry started off the thing just saying the competition level is at an all-time high. So we got that going for us, Sam. And I kind of wanted to go through the positions. And I'll start with Kyron at quarterback. Continues to look locked in, confident, in rhythm. Have you heard like a negative word about Kyron in this camp?
No, I don't expect to, though. I think the most exciting thing for Hokies fans is the fact that multiple times we've heard that he's putting in the extra work and he's taking reps from some of the backups in cases and kind of refusing to leave his turn. And I think that's good, not only from a health and wellness standpoint for him coming off of the surgery that he had late spring, early summer, but also from just kind of a leadership perspective. Tech needs a guy like that that's not going to leave the field. And he was one tough cookie last year with all the injuries he dealt with, and it seems like he's 100% now. But I think everything we've heard about Kyron is really positive so far. Not that I'm expecting a negative, but I think we've heard positives in maybe a different way than you would normally hear positives about a quarterback, if that makes any sense.
I mean, I've been listening to these August press conferences for at least 10 years. It really goes back to about 2009, 2010, when I started to really just like become obsessed with Tech football. But a coach doesn't have to say the good thing. They can kind of like just, yeah, he looks all right. Yeah, he could have been more accurate, whatever. Everything we've heard has been more or less effusive, which in my opinion, from all the things I've heard over the many years, like it's a good sign. It is a good sign to hear what we've been hearing. At running back, Marcellus Hawkins kind of came up last week because of the hurdle he put in. Was that the Oklahoma drill where he just jumped over the guy?
I don't know if I think they call it like inside run.
They call it something else.
It's not quite Oklahoma anymore, but yeah, he's a guy who I think they've been kind of surprised at how his body has changed since going from Central Northwestern Missouri
D2,
Tech State,
right?
something like that, whatever it is. I mean, I think they're really pleasantly surprised with him. I don't think he's going to lead this team in carries, but oh goodness, I have a thumbs down. I don't mean thumbs down. If you're watching on YouTube, I don't know if I would put him in like running back one right now, but I think I'm kind of getting like RB1B, RB2 vibes from him. And I don't think we really expected that when he committed to the Hokies.
No, I would have expected Braylon Bennett to be RB2 or Coney to be RB2, but they're calling Hawkins the most well-rounded back among the group. He slimmed down this offseason and is more explosive than they initially thought.
Yeah, I think my guess, barring injury right now, is it's in terms of number of touches, it's going to go Stewart, Hawkins, Bennett, Coney. I'm not sure about Prelude health-wise coming off the Achilles.
Yeah.
My guess is he is not 100% right now, but I still think Stewart is going to get the bulk of the carries, but Hawkins, man, it seems like they just can't keep him off the field.
It seems like he will definitely be part of the 3-guy rotation they want to have. And It's interesting because when we got Tootin, didn't Price say the same thing? Like, he's like, I didn't know he was that fast. Like, I didn't know he was quite that good. And so maybe this is Brooks doing an outstanding job of talent eval. And if these guys hit, if 2 out of 3 of these guys hit this year and can put up numbers, like, he's going to be a hot commodity.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you get a combined, gosh, I don't know, like 15 to 1,700 yards out of those two guys, your offense changes.
Mm-hmm.
Because last year when it was all Bashal Tootin, you saw at the end of the year he was, he wasn't 100% for the last 4 games or whatever. So if you can kind of split it and get the same kind of production, that changes your offense down the stretch.
Yeah. Did you say PJ was a full go?
I don't think I haven't heard he's not a full go.
Yeah, they said they were talking about it on TSL. Like, I just wanted to bring it up because they said, like, despite the Achilles tear, he's out there, blue contact.
I hope he's good to go. My guess is he's not like going to take a bulk of the carries here early.
Well,
no,
but
I can't imagine him being conditioning and physically wise ready to go. That's an Achilles. That's a tough thing to come back.
I just feel so bad for the timing of his injury last year, not only for the team, but for him personally, because he really could have had himself a nice second half of the season last year. And
I think he'll be back. Like, he'll be back. And a lot of these guys, like, I think Hawkins will be done after this year. Stewart will be done after this year. Bennett has played at Coastal for a few years. So he got a medical red shirt last year, I believe. So PJ is going to be a big part of this.
PJ, Coney, and who's the young kid that is still there too? I can't think of his name. Not Overton, the other one.
Yeah, Overton will be out for this. Overton probably won't play much this year at all. Redshirt guy.
Is it Thomas?
Maybe.
Either way. Let's move to wide receiver. Takai Heath, another summer, fall of him getting some hype. This is reaching like Jaden Keller levels with Takai Heath, because ever since he got to campus, he has turned heads.
I need him not to be DeJuan Lofton.
Right. Exactly. Very similar.
I think he has a little bit of like go gadget to him. And I think that's where the Hokies will use him. I don't see him being an outside receiver that gets a ton of targets, but I could see him running a daunted jet sweep here or there, or some tunnel screens, something like that. So I don't think he's going to be a guy who gets a ton of touches, but those touches he does get might be pretty impactful because they're noticing him in practice. As for the other wide receivers, Donovan Green, I think as the elder statesman, they're really liking how he's coming on. Obviously, Aiden Green has maybe the highest upside out of anybody. And then
an NFL upside in my opinion.
Yeah. And then Brody Adams and Chance Wiggins, I think we're just kind of waiting to see as they progress throughout the season. Yeah. I don't really know how the target share is going to go in this new offense, to be honest with you.
And I don't really care how it goes. I just need the guys, when they do get the ball, catch it and make a play. And for someone like Takai Heath, being that more shifty, agile type, as he says, he's more stronger and more agile than he's been in the past, and he's mentally locked in. He could really be a perfect fit for the Montgomery up-tempo, let's go and score some points, be explosive kind of offense. And so I'm hoping, obviously I want him to be more than a gadget player, but if that's all he ends up being, just some spot duty, like who was the XTR? Who's the kid a couple years ago who ran the reverse?
Turner Bradshaw,
XTB.
Yep.
Right. Like something like that, but a little bit more of a contribution would be kind of what I envision for Takai Heath. And then they did also mention Snook Peterkin has been getting some commentary from the veterans.
I'm getting redshirt vibes from him. I think he'll play a couple games getting redshirt vibes, because we also have Tucker Holloway. And I got to be honest, how I'm feeling right now is Tucker Holloway has rehabbed and played his way into that wide receiver 3 position, I think.
Yeah, I put up a story on our Instagram of a deep ball that he caught the other day in practice.
Yeah,
that's nice to see.
I think the reason we haven't heard it, and this is, I mean, Pete, this is total August conjecture, but
I love it.
I think the reason we haven't heard as much about Brody Adams, other than the injury, and Chance Wiggins as well, I think Tucker Holloway has has taken over that wide receiver 3 position. So would not shock me to see him have a bigger role this
3
year.
or 4, because we got Cam Seldon there too, Sam.
We do have Cam Seldon. Gosh, is this like, oh God, is this, I think this wide receiver room is better than last year.
Well, we can say names, but all of these guys are unproven. Like that's Tuck has done a few things. Donovan Green has a history. Aiden Green made a few plays last year, but like, you know what I'm saying? Like there's a lot of prove it to me with this receiving core. So
yeah, I just feel like the drop off last year after that fourth guy, the players who start when you're running 11 personnel, I feel like the drop off was pretty steep. And then this year, I feel like the drop off between, your number 3 guy and your number 6 guy is really non-existent.
That could be true. That could be very true. On offensive line, they are making fewer mental mistakes, reportedly. And there's been more talk about Cunningham potentially being one of our most dependable offensive linemen this season, which is very cool. They Coach Moore, he said, I can see improvements in my technique thanks to Coach Moore, like whether it's his hands or his feet or whatever it is. So that's cool to hear as well. And it was so weird when we brought him in last year and then didn't use him at all.
Yeah, that was a red flag. Looking back, that was a pretty big red flag.
At the coach, yeah, maybe.
This is the one position group that I kind of wish I was hearing bigger, better things about.
Yeah,
I feel like we're hearing about the defensive line winning a lot in practice.
It's tough because we know we have a good defensive line coach. We know we have good defensive line players, and so
yeah,
if they're beating up on this OL, like should that really be?
It's the catch-22 of fall camp, that's for sure. And I just think we will not know how good this offensive line is until they play in Atlanta.
Until they get Dylan Stewart going up against them.
It honestly might be the Vanderbilt game where we can really judge this offensive line. I'm going to be honest with you.
On defensive line, Sam Seifkes wanted to get defensive linemen with bigger size. When he was talking about how he's filling out the roster after he got here, you'll notice we added Heisman, we added Fall. He wanted to get bigger to get guys who can stop the run. And there does seem to be, this is something that Chris Coleman talked about. It was on the boards that there's 2 groupings at defensive end. They're kind of doing edge and end as 2 different type of positions.
Are they going to run a 3-4 at points?
I think they're going to do a lot of 3-down linemen.
I think they are. And I think you're going to see some 3-4. I think you're going to see some 3-3-5. I think they're going to mix it up pretty much every other week. What they're going to look like in South Carolina, I genuinely have no idea. And we really haven't been privy to any like real schematic portions of practice yet. I don't think anybody will. So I'm really curious to see how they use some of these new edge players they got. And I mean, they went out and got some big DTs.
They did. I mean, and Gilliam's a big dude, but yeah, Heisman, Fall. Who's the other? Fall's the really big guy. Who's
no.
Fall's Fall's a DT.
Yeah, the player from South Florida.
Oh, Hickman. Yes,
Hickman. Yep.
At linebacker, Woodson has arguably the best motor on the team, according to Pry. Short and Santiago have been fitting in well, according to Sam Seifkes. And Sam Seifkes also said he likes Woodson's leadership and that his consistency stands out. And so none of that is super surprising, but the Short and Santiago thing, we keep hearing just a little bit more about those guys over and over again.
I mean, they're going to have to play. That's your 2 deep at linebackers. I think they're going to have to play. And you didn't bring those guys in to sit on the bench. Like, that's kind of how I always feel about veteran transfers. Like, you don't bring guys in just so they can like take up a roster spot.
Especially after spring.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, they came in for a reason. And so I think you're going to see them play.
The top 4 DBs are Lovett, Thomas Williams, Isaiah Brown-Murray, and Caleb Brown. Brown-Murray is the one from ECU. Caleb Brown is the one from Hawaii. Those are the top 4 corners, I should say, not top 4 DBs, the top 4 corners. Lovett has looked really good so far, according to Colby Crawford's reporting. IBM, Isaiah Brown-Murray, we've heard for months, looks like the guy at nickel, but he's also been working outside, and he has experience at safety from before. So he provides the team a lot of versatility, and he's confident. If you looked at his like interviews from Media Day, like that's a confident young man, and says he fits Cephas's scheme perfectly from his own mouth. So I'm hoping that's the case.
I think this is the biggest like question mark on this team, and it's not because are they going to be good enough or not. It's what the heck are they going to look like?
Yeah,
I have no idea. And so I think this is the thing that most beat reporters for the Hokies will be investigating on Wednesday when we get some more action in practice and we get to talk to the coaches and some players again. So we'll see what this defensive back looks like. They have a lot of options. I think it is pretty telling, though, since they came on campus, we have heard that IBM is going to have a starting spot, at least in some formations. And then we've also heard, Tyson Flowers immediately was like, he was immediately Sharpied in. Everyone else has kind of, and then Reddish, but like everybody else has been kind of like up in the air around there. So you have Lovett, IBM, Flowers, and then it's kind of in Reddish. But then you're also like, well, I'm not so sure. They brought in this guy. They brought in this guy. They decided to.
I mean, I think next up is Thomas Williams. Like, I think they like Thomas Williams. He's very athletic, and it would have been Josh Clark, I think, if he was healthy.
Yeah.
But Thomas, I think, is next up. And Caleb Brown coming from Hawaii. I know he's got experience. I mean, and what about Isaiah Cash too? Isn't there another Isaiah?
Isaiah Cash had a lot of praise coming from
he's
Sam
a safety.
Houston.
Is he a safety or corner?
He is a safety. Caleb Brown played corner at Hawaii.
Yeah.
But like I think those are more depth pieces. Yeah. Honestly.
I'm also curious as to like what JoJo Krim and Knowledge Harrell do, because I think after spring, what we've heard in fall, like both of those guys are going to be contributing in the DB room.
I would not be surprised if JoJo Krim, when we get to November, is like playing meaningful snaps.
Yeah.
Because it's been since spring practice we've heard about him, and always in the defensive backfield, a couple injuries here or there, always someone comes in at the end of the season. I would expect JoJo Krim to be one of those guys.
Yeah. Another true freshman that's we talked about on our last show was Noah Chambers. Just that he's a freak. If you look at the pictures of him, he's like built like a senior as a true freshman.
And Jordan, I'm telling you, like they got a lot of these guys, this is their last or second to last year of eligibility. Tech has some depth in the defensive backfield now. Yeah. Jordan Bass is back there too.
True.
They got some dudes.
It seems like whether they hit on all of them, it seems like there's optimism about upside with so many of the guys they brought in this cycle.
I mean, if they go like 60, how many DBs do they bring in total? If you include,
we
Jordan
have
Bass
like 18 on the
there.
Roster. Like,
they brought in like 10.
Yeah, they brought in a ton.
If you hit on like 6 of them and you already know you have Lovett and Reddish back there, you're feeling pretty good. You're feeling pretty good about the future of this DB room.
I'm counting. Hold on one second. If you count the freshmen, they brought in 13 DBs. If you count if you hit on 6 of them, if you hit on 6 of them, you're set.
Yeah.
So I mean, because we didn't even mention Ellis or Koval or some of these other guys. So like Jamari Deloach, like.
It makes me wonder, like, shoot, is there one position group that Tech just has no players?
Well, with the 105, you do have more depth, but like you're not paying all those guys. So what is the quality at each position? It's hard to say. But all right, so that's DB. At kick returner, it's PJ battling it out with Thomas Williams, who did do it last year and looked pretty good. My hair is going crazy right now. PJ, Thomas Williams, Tyler Mason, that's the running back I couldn't think of, and Cam Selden are kind of trying to figure out what they're doing at kick return. Punt return, we know it's going to be Holloway, so we're set there. Overall, there were so many player interviews, whether it was from our YouTube page, because we posted a bunch of what Ryan got, and then Colby's YouTube page has a ton. Probably discuss the emphasis on situational football. That's the last thing I wanted to bring up. Just they're diving into situational football more than they ever have, and Sam Cephas said it's one of the first things they addressed, and they're leaning on his NFL expertise to kind of help with that. And that's what we want to hear, but we need to see it. And that's like situational football, Sam, like summarizing that 2-minute drill, 4th downs, like
red zone,
down and distance, red zone.
Yeah. I think it's it's probably their number one point of emphasis. I think it will become what fumbling was to Justin Fuente. Like
Expected outcome type stuff.
yeah, like after that Tennessee game where Tech fumbled it away over and over again, like Fuente became a little obsessed with ball security, which is a good thing to work on as a team. I think you're seeing that with Brent Pry. He's like, he's determined not to be the reason this team loses a close game, which
he
probably
knows
needs
it's
to
1 and
be.
12. He knows about that number.
Oh yeah, he does. And I think to the point where they brought in a like specialist in that area of defensive football. Yeah. Like to say it's a point of emphasis, I think would be an understatement.
Absolutely. So we talked about South Carolina a bunch of earlier in the show with Mark Packer. We're going to be down there. We're having our pregame party at the Beer Garden the day of the game. That's hosted by Mahul and TechStream. We've got information on tickets to that on sonsofsaturday.com, Facebook, X, Instagram. You can find the link in the bio on Instagram on Sons of Saturday about the Beer Garden before the game. The day before, Saturday in the South is going down at Park Tavern in Atlanta. Watch all the games with us. We're all going to be there. Open bar from 3 to 6, live music after that. We got ticket information on our website. Again, X, Instagram, everything, sonsofsaturday.com for that. So if you're going down to Atlanta and you need a hotel room, you can find that information as well on the website in addition to the two parties. So make sure you're checking all of that out in addition to subscribing to Sons of Saturday on YouTube, to Too Deep on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And I think I got everything, Sam.
I think you got it. If you just put Sons of Saturday or Too Deep VT into a Google search, you can go from there.
You'll find this stuff pretty quick.
Yeah.
But I'm excited about Atlanta. We still got a couple other cool things coming up. Now, tonight was awesome because we had Mark.
Absolutely.
But next week, we're going to be doing some over-unders around college football, around the nation, and updating you on Hokies news and notes. And that's going to be with our buddy Colby from the Sports Gambling Podcast. That should be really fun. Sam, I know you've got some plays. I've been working on my plays. I just want a couple from each conference and then maybe a G5 play or two. And
got it. 5 or 6 G5 plays. Got
it. And then we'll be doing season preview, South Carolina preview with some Gamecocks. There might be a couple other shows squeezed in there. I'm not exactly sure yet.
Dude, it's here. Dude. It's here.
I know. Because it's the 12th. We've got 3 weeks until the game.
Farmageddon might as well be tomorrow.
Did you see the shirts with Farm O-Geddon with the Irish
That's
logo?
Phenomenal.
I think so it is.
Good. I'm
a ranked
so
matchup.
Happy.
A ranked matchup.
Beautiful. Take the under, all right. By the way. Take the under.
Yeah, that's probably a good call. All right, you guys already heard everything from me. So until next time, when we're doing some sweet over-unders with our guy Colby, go Hokies.
Go Hokies.